Peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings. Most of us, when we come to photograph something specific or a beautiful scene that we saw in front of us, and we want to take a picture of it, the picture that we find is 100% satisfactory. We also feel that the scene in reality is more beautiful than the picture. The picture does not show all the details. There is always a barrier between the picture and reality. But I wonder what the problem is. Why does the scene in reality look a little different from the picture? Is the reason for this that the resolution of the eye is greater than the resolution of the cameras we use? And is it even logical to compare the human eye to cameras or not? Welcome, I am Ashraf Attia, but before we begin, if you are still new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell so that you receive our videos first. The human eye is literally a living miracle that exists inside our bodies. Its diameter is about 2.5 centimeters, and its weight does not exceed 8 grams. But it is full of things and secrets. The eye receives photons, the light that falls on the objects around it, and from here its journey begins with the path of vision and sight. The front part of the eye contains a hole through which light passes, called the pupil, something like the front part of cameras. This pupil now works with a strange system. In the case of dim light, it begins to expand greatly in order to let in more. How much light and compensate for the state of darkness in the place, and in the case of strong light, it begins to contract to reduce the amount of light entering it, so that the light is present in sufficient quantity in the surrounding medium, something like an electronic lighting control system. And after that, this amount of rays falls on a place inside the eye similar to the lens in order to be able to adjust distances according to distance or proximity. And this also happens automatically. And then the lens begins to send light to what is called the retina. This retina now has millions of visual cells whose function is to translate the colors and lighting present in every image recorded by the eye. You will find a number of these cells responsible for colored images and another number about uncolored images, and number 1 is responsible for daytime vision and another is responsible for nighttime vision. Each type begins to receive the type of images it specializes in and then sends it in the form of electrical pulses that are ultimately directed to the optic nerve and from there to the brain. The brain then begins to analyze the electrical code it received and translates it. This happens in cooperation with the center, sight and the memory center. If the image you are seeing is a new image, it is compared to the files in the memory so that you know at that time whether you are seeing it for the first time or not. But if the image is old and you have seen it before, for example, the features of a person familiar to you, his image is compared to the files in memory so that you know immediately that this is a picture of someone, so you recognize the person in the picture. And since humans have 2 eyes, not one, this action is repeated twice with the same details. Then the brain begins to combine the 2 pictures that were recorded and merge them together to get a better picture. This journey, despite its complexity, it is long, but it takes place in a split second. All of this happens inside our eyes and brains in a moment, without us feeling it and without any effort. Glory be to God. It is amazing that your eye on a dark, clear night can detect a candle flame 48 kilometers away. In addition, it sees objects that are farther away every day. From this, there are many objects that are millions of light years away from us. When we look at the sky, we can see the stars of the Milky Way galaxy, which is separated from us by enormous distances. In fact, sometimes if the sky is completely clear and dark, we can see the Andromeda galaxy, the galaxy next to our galaxy, which is more than 2 billion light years away from us. And 500,000 light years away, the human eye can do more amazing things than that. The eye has the ability to fix its gaze on a specific point, while the head moves around a fixed axis in any direction. In other words, if there is a point in front of you on a screen, try to focus on it with both eyes. At the same time, move your head right, left, up and down, and do whatever you want as long as your eye is focused on the same point. You will find that despite the movement of your head in all directions and the fuss you are making, your eye still has the ability to detect the same point in front of you and focus on it without any problems. The reason for this is that when the brain starts moving, the eye shifts and rotates around itself in a direction opposite to the movement of the brain. Therefore, the result in the end, is a state of stability of vision while monitoring any object. In addition, the iris of the eye has a fingerprint similar to a fingerprint, meaning that anyone listening to us now has something in his eye. A unique fingerprint that is not found anywhere else in the world, even if the person has a twin brother. The eye print is something special for identity and is only found in you. Now that we know these amazing details about the eye and vision, and before we answer the question about the quality of the human eye, we need to know some other concepts. Of course, we have all heard the word pixel before, and also the word megapixel, which equals 1 million pixels. The pixel is simply one of the important factors in collecting the light falling on the lens in order to process it and form the image after several steps. The camera sensor consists of a large number of pixels, and the more of them there are, the more. The amount of light that the sensor receives increases, and with it the different angles at which the light falls on each pixel increase. It is known that when the number of pixels increases, the resolution of the image also begins to increase, taking into account, of course, that there are many other factors responsible for the quality of the image, such as lighting, processor power, and others. Things other than the number of pixels. In order to understand the subject of pixels in detail and its role in the imaging process, let us symbolize a single pixel as if it were an infinitely small square. Many of us see that videos on YouTube are divided into several qualities: 340, 480, 720, 1080, and so on. The 1080 represents an image whose size is 1920 wide by 1080 long, means that this image contains 1920 pixels next to each other in width arranged in 1080 rows in length. To simplify, if we hear that there is a camera with a resolution of 12 megapixels, this means that this camera can take a rectangular image with a length of 3000 pixels and a width of 4000 pixels, meaning that the image contains 4000 very small squares next to each other arranged in 3000 rows below each other. And this means that this camera is able to divide the image into 12 million small squares, which is the pixel, and this means that the pixel is ultimately a unit of measurement for the size of the captured images. So now we understand everything. Something special about pixels and camera resolution. Let's talk about the resolution of the human eye. First, the question of how many pixels does the eye have is not an accurate question because the eye is simply not a camera lens. Many researchers and lens specialists, when they tried to find a solution to this issue, the issue was very complicated for them due to the difficulty of the type of comparison between a machine and a vital organ present in the human body. But with some attempts to simulate the accuracy of the eye, they were able to reach an approximate answer, which was that the accuracy of the human eye is close to 576 megapixels. And to know how they were able to do so, they determined this number specifically. The subject was as follows. When they took a close look at the retina, it contained two important types of light-sensitive cells. First, cone cells, numbering approximately 6.5 million cells, whose function is to distinguish primary colors. Second, pole cells, numbering approximately 100 million cells, whose function is to distinguish the colors black and white. After that, the eye distinguishes the colors of the image in front of it through visual cells and sensors that store the image and transmit it through an important thing called the optic nerves, which transmit this data directly to the brain. So we can begin to see the crux of the matter now that researchers have discovered that the optic nerve is the only thing that can be compared to the sensors in cameras, and through it they can determine the accuracy of the eye to some extent. Indeed, they discovered that the number of these transmitting optic nerves is estimated at about 800,000 nerves. Based on this, they were able to determine the approximate accuracy of the eye in the language of cameras, and they discovered that it is at the very least more than 500 megapixels, specifically 576 megapixels, and there are digital specifications that appeared in an estimated manner regarding the operations that take place in the human eye. But in the language of cameras, such as the lens aperture, focal length, sensitivity, and other specifications. The approximate result was as follows. The eye works with a focal length value ranging from 22 to 35 millimeters. Its lens aperture ranges from 16 to 24 millimeters. Its ISO is around 800, and its white balance is automatic. It is worth mentioning after we mention this, that there are other aspects in which the human eye is overwhelmingly superior to any other. A camera. In the world, for example, the operations of determining the field or scope, determining the focus of the lens or focus, determining the depth of the image, color contrast, lighting degree, and others are all complex operations in cameras that always need to be set up in advance before the camera is used. And any error in adjusting any element, some of them, while taking pictures, can ruin the picture completely. But as for the eye, all of this happens automatically. No one wakes up from sleep, washes his face, and then adjusts his eye settings because today, for example, the sun is hot. The human eye does not need any presets. It is available at full capacity all the time, and it takes pictures and records them in a renewable video platform that has no limits and is equipped with a battery that does not need to be charged. Finally, we thank God Almighty who created man in the best form and bestowed upon him a great blessing such as sight. But that's it, we have not reached this point. All that has reached us is that you are the best people. Like us before you leave so that we know. How many made it to the end? Don't forget, if you have a question in the middle of the night that is confusing, write it to us in the comments below the video so that we can answer it. Peace.